All right. Hello again, adventurers, and welcome to another exciting episode of D&D Deep Dive, the show where we dive deep into classes, subclasses, and other features in 5th edition, so to ensure that you get the most out of your choices. So, today, we're going to be continuing from the thing I started in the last video, which is going through the various subclasses of heroes and villains of the Theros, a brand new supplement on the DM's Guild, written by Dael Kingsmill and Jeremy M is what I'm going to say, because I still don't know how to pronounce his name. And he's a great guy from everything I can see. So, there's a very, very loud motorcycle outside. Last time we got through the Barbarian subclass and the Bard subclass. So today we are going to start with the Cleric subclass. Just as a reminder, these are all kind of like mythic, inspired subclasses to go with the new Theros setting that was just released by Wizards of the Coast. This is not made by Wizards of the Coast or anything like that. It is homebrew content that's been published on the DM's Guild. So you're not going to be finding this on D&D Beyond or anything like that, but you will find it in a link in the description, so you can go and purchase it. As of writing this, I have to look now. I believe I can't find it right now. I believe it is an Electrum bestseller. If you're not aware of how the things work on the DM's Guild, depending on how many paid for purchases you get, you'll actually get ranked in one of their bestsellers. It's all based on metals. It goes copper, silver, electrum, gold, platinum. I think it's adamantine, and then mithril is the highest, I believe. So this one is shooting up the ranks. It's only been on sale for, I think, a little over a day now. So yeah, please check it out. The other thing I'm going to remind everyone here is, because this is brand new and on sale right now, I don't want people using this video as a way to basically learn all of the features of these subclasses and then not have to buy the supplement. I want to support my friends. So there will be certain things, mechanics that I actually leave out of the descriptions when I'm talking about everything. And again, that's just simply done to kind of encourage people to go pick this up, because it really is cool. The subclasses I'm covering today, I'm going to be a little bit more critical on at least one of them, but it doesn't mean that I don't. It doesn't mean that I think that this isn't worth buying or anything. It absolutely is worth the $8 in my personal opinion. And there's a decent amount more than just these subclasses. There's some new magic items. There's some new backgrounds. There's some new NPC stat blocks. So it's overall, I think it's a great value. I absolutely adore the people that made it. So with that, let's dive into it. So, Cleric, the journey domain. You guys may remember that Cleric is one of the most recent D&D deep dives I did. So just as a refresher, for 5th edition design, class design is kind of defined by the fact that each class should be very different from every other one. And the things that make the class different, that define the class, should show up in the first two levels. Anything after that should somehow fit into those defining aspects of the class, or should modify them in a way to give you new ways to use it. So, going back to clerics, the kind of defining feature of the cleric is, one, they are spellcasters. They're full spellcasters. They get it right at level 1. The other kind of really interesting defining feature of a cleric is they choose their subclass, which is called a divine domain, right at level 1. So specifically with cleric domains, you actually have a little bit more freedom in kind of designing and building them than in other subclasses, or in other classes, subclasses, whatever. Because part of the defining feature of the cleric is defined by their domain, because you get it right at level 1. So we'll be looking at that, and then the other defining feature of the cleric is their channel divinity. Paladins also get a channel divinity, but clerics can use it more often. And clerics are much more well known for their channel divinity, going all the way back to at least the second edition. It might be in first and original D&D as well. I'm not as familiar with clerics that early in the game. So let's jump into it. First things first, right at the first level, you get to two things. You get Swift Traveler and Guiding Light. Swift Traveler is really simple. Your walking speed increases by 10 feet. Again, with this being the journey domain, everything about this class is going to kind of hinge on the idea of not really movement as much as continuing a journey. Their domain spells are all very much journey kind of movement focused. Everything from things like comprehend languages and pass without a trace, all the way up to things like freedom of movement and pass wall. Just things that allow you to continue the journey you're on with the least amount of problems. Sometimes that's by increasing your speed. Sometimes that's by removing obstacles, which can be anything from physical obstacles all the way to intellectual obstacles, like not sharing a common language with someone that's in some way blocking your path is an obstacle. And so I really like that aspect where it really takes into account all the different parts of a journey and all the things that could affect it. So Swift Traveler is really simple. The second thing you get at level 1 is called Guiding Light. Which is a really unique one. But basically, you can name a location on the same plane of existence. Like, I live in Wisconsin, if you're not aware of. And the largest city in Wisconsin is Milwaukee. So if I was a journey cleric, I could just go Milwaukee, and through kind of divine means, I would know which direction I need to go in order to get to my destination. Now, notice I didn't say I would know the direction of my destination, and that's not what it says here. It specifically says you receive an indication of the direction you must travel. So I like that. I like the idea that this isn't just, a compass point and then you have to find your way there. No, this is a guide that will help you get where you need to go. Now you can only use the ability once a day, recharges at dawn, and you also gain proficiency in the survival skill. Now, as far as what that indication is, you will have to actually get the guide to actually see how they describe what the indication is. But I think it's pretty cool. And again, I like that idea of it's not telling you what direction it's in, because there's spells that do very similar things to that. No, this is going to guide you going, hey, if you need to get here, this is the path you're going to need to take. So, here. You basically have divine GPS, which is cool. Second level, you get your channel divinity. All clerics have one in common channel divinity, which is to turn undead, and then your domain will give you another channel divinity. Sometimes a couple. I know there's at least one or two where you get two channel divinities in addition. This one gives you divine shepherd. This one is effectively you present your holy symbol, and you can choose any number of creatures within a certain distance, and they get to use their reaction to move a distance up to their walking speed, and it doesn't provoke opportunity attacks. If you want to know how close they need to be, pick up the supplement. It's worth it. This is another thing that's massively useful. I talk all the time about the idea of like a control type character, where their goal is not so much to deal tons of damage or protect the party, but literally just control the battlefield, where enemies are, where your allies are, things like that. This is 100% a control type maneuver, and it can be massively useful. Being able to move without provoking opportunity attacks means a wizard or a sorcerer, someone real squishy, can get out of a really bad situation without too much difficulty. If you're in fireball formation and you realize, oh crap, that really powerful enemy spellcaster is about to nuke us, you can do this, and everybody spreads out, and they have to work a lot harder to do significant damage to your party. Or sometimes it's as simple as there's a wall of bad guys in the way, and you need to get to someone behind them. You can just have them go basically run just straight around or just straight through the line. And get to the guy being protected without getting opportunity attacks. So always is useful. Sixth level, another really kind of basic one. You get a climbing and swimming speed equal to your walking speed, which effectively means having a swimming speed normally means you don't have to make athletics checks to swim, which for a cleric who generally wear medium or heavy armor can be difficult. The same is true about climbing. If you have a climbing speed, you're not going to need to make athletic checks to be able to climb, and you can actually climb faster than most. It's not the same as like the monk's ability to just walk on water or run up walls, but it is really useful and fits with the theme. Like all cleric domains, the 8th level of ability is going to kind of define it as either a weapon-based cleric or a spell-based cleric. And this is a spell-based cleric with potent spellcasting. You add your wisdom modifier to the damage you deal with any cleric cantrip. Really simple, really basic, but it does kind of fit this cleric into the more caster type role. Which makes sense because it didn't get any additional proficiencies in weapons or armor that would make it more suited to being in the middle of things. From a kind of lore perspective, I kind of think with how much movement and continuing your journey is emphasized in this, I could see this actually going either way, as it being either a spellcaster or melee weapon. And I think an argument could be made pretty effectively that this would make a really good weapon-based cleric, as they're going to be at the head of the journey moving forward. Cool. And then finally, we get the level 17 ability, which I think is probably one of the coolest abilities I have ever heard. It's called Blessed Crossing, and effectively it turns you into Moses. Now, what I mean by that is for a certain number of hours, if you want to know exactly how long it lasts, pick it up because it's definitely worth it. Basically, any impassable to terrain changes so it can become passable. That might mean the the sea is splitting so you can walk through. That might mean boulders coming up and forming a bridge over a chasm, or a tunnel magically appearing as you get close to a mountain. And the list goes on. Just get as creative as you want. Underbrush slowly moving away so you can walk without being hurt by it. Fog and things like that magically clearing up and creating a path for you. It keeps going and going. The other cool thing about this is you can actually cause the stuff that moved out of your way to go back after you pass. There is a specific radius area that you have to have this kind of active, and it can't collapse in that area. Which again, pick it up if you want to know how big that area is. But other than that, if you're fleeing bad guys, as long as you can put a little distance between yourselves, you can definitely get away from them. If you're not, I'm going to bring this up because it's so very rare that I get to bring up biblical stories in my D&D videos. But if you're familiar with the story of Moses crossing the Red Sea with the Israelites, the reason they're doing that is the Egyptian army is coming to capture them because they're escaping slavery from Egypt. And so Moses parts the Red Sea and they walk across on dry land. Well, after the Egyptians get over the damn factor of that, Pharaoh says, no, keep going, get these guys. And so they start following the Israelites and Moses on the bed of the Red Sea. And after all the Israelites are out, Moses just goes, okay, and the Red Sea closes again on the Egyptian army, wiping it out completely. You can kind of do that with this. You're running through, you see a giant mountain. You're in a box canyon. You're being attacked by a dragon or something. You run into the mountain. And then once you get a little farther away and it starts coming after you, the mountain falls on it and the path collapses behind you. Now, it does mention you need to maintain good concentration on it, just like a concentration spell. So super bad things can happen if you fail concentration. It does mean that enemies that don't want you to get away might to target your cleric. So it's not a super overpowered ability by any means, but it is an incredibly brilliant ability. If you think even in more kind of fantastical settings, think of something like Aragorn leading the hobbits through the forest to Elrond. And just the idea of, instead of him just knowing the paths, if the paths actually open for him, and other things like that. Like I just really like this idea of a a cleric that's so gifted by a god of movement or a god of travel that they become the ultimate guide, able to guide parties and things like that through paths that literally no one else can. I just think that's amazing. You use your action to do that. So it's not like it's a 1 hour casting time or something like that. No, this is literally 6 seconds. It just starts. It lasts for a while, and then you can't you use it again until you finish a long rest. But it's still massively cool. So overall, I think the Journey Domain Cleric is amazing. I think of the classes I've read, I think this one is my favorite because just the kind of lore and just the cool character you could create for a Journey Cleric is something that you literally cannot create currently in the D&D, and this is something I think is really cool. Next, we're going to the Druid Circle of Revelry. Now, this is one that was led by Jeremy, and I've got to say this. My personal opinion, I think this is one of the weakest classes or subclasses in the entire campaign. And I think it kind of falls into the issue that the PHB Rangers subclasses had, where the subclass actively fights the main class in certain places, and in other places it simply just doesn't benefit the base class, and so overall it turns it into something that it's interesting, and the lore behind it is interesting, but when you look at how it's executed, it doesn't seem to fulfill the place that it intended to, and it definitely doesn't really gel with how a druid is kind of built. So let's real quick remember, druids are defined by, first of all, there's spellcasting. They're nature-based spellcasters, and they are full casters. So second of all, they have their wild shape. Wild shape is such a defining feature of druids that druids in other media have been kind of stuck on that idea of a druid is a shape-changing, nature-based caster. My favorite example is in World of Warcraft. The primary feature of the druid is the various forms they can take. They have a bear form, they have a cat form, they have a travel form, they have a flying form, and then there's a couple specialization forms like the Tree of Life and the Moonkin, effectively called the Boomkin is what people could call it. Anyway, so the wild shape is a really big part, to the point where the two PHB classes exclusively focus on either the wild shape or the spellcasting. So that's what we would want to see with this class is either it should help the wild shape be able to do more things or be more effective, or it should help your spell casting in some way, giving you access to new spells, giving you new ways to cast spells, or the things like that. So jumping into it, the first thing you get at second level is called Revelr's Delight. which is basically you gain proficiency in either performance or a music instrument, and you learn the Druid craft cantrip, which doesn't count against the number of cantrips you can know. So increases the number of cantrips you can learn. And it gives you an expanded range that you can use the Druid Craft cantrip. Generally, Druid Craft is limited to a 5-foot cube. This actually expands how large an area you can affect with it. If you want to know the specifics, pick it up because it's really good. The second thing you get at second level is circle form. This is a new way to use your wild shape feature. So it does fit into that idea of wild shape and changing how you can use it. However, there isn't really many benefits to taking on your circle form. It changes your AC calculation, where basically instead of it being 10 plus your dex or your armor, the armor class of your armor plus your dex, it adds in your wisdom modifier. So it's basically the same calculation you would make as a monk, which is nice, but druids don't generally use a lot of the dex. It can kind of guide you towards, okay, I guess this druid is going to be heavily dex and wisdom based, as opposed to most druids just being entirely wisdom based, because that's what their spellcasting is needed. And anytime they need another stat, they just wild shape into something that has a better physical stat. So I guess that's not bad. The other thing that's nice is wearing armor doesn't affect that calculation. Either it's your regular, armor plus dex, or it's 10 plus dex plus wisdom. Whichever one is going to be higher. So that's nice. It may give you a slightly higher armor class, though once you start wearing magic armor and stuff like that, it's probably not going to be as useful. The circle form does mention that all the stuff that you're wearing doesn't disappear. It just adapts to your new form, which the form itself, they mention humans will appear as like satyrs, or satyrs, however you pronounce that. And any other creature will just come on kind of to take on more nature aspects, like maybe your skin will turn to bark, or you'll start have vines growing out of your hair. So this is something you just look very naturey, which again is kind of cool, but they already have some spells that allow you to do that without needing to use one of your wild shapes, which your wild shapes can be incredibly useful in other situations, like if you need a swim speed, or as you get to higher levels, if you need to fly, wild shape can give it that to you. And again, if you need a physical skill, your wild shape can give you a high strength score or a high dex, as long as you've seen a beast that fits that. So it also mentions you can cast your circle spells while in your circle form, and you have advantage on wisdom saves to resist charm effects. And that's it. It does mention you get temporary hit points when you transform into your circle form. the actual makeup of how many temporary hit points you'll have to pick up the class in order to figure out. But it is a static number. You don't roll anything with it, which is kind of how most temp hit points work. And then it only says you revert to your true form if you die, which is very, very different from wild shape, which is if you go unconscious, if you go unconscious, if you hit 0 hit points, or if you die, you revert to your normal form. So I don't know if this is a typo, or if you actually get to make death saves and things like that in your circle form. It doesn't really explain that here, but the fact that it doesn't mention those other things, if I was making a call at the table, to me would say that they intended it to be only if you die can you be forced out of your circle form. Which again is another weird thing. It's nice that you get the temporary hit points, but things like your hit points don't increase. Like wild shape, you get the hit points of the creature that you turn into, and a lot of druids basically use that as a hit point buffer. They will have certain forms that are just hit points as sponges, so they can survive really, really nasty attacks and not be worse for wear. So as far as like a motivation to use your circle form right at level 2 when you get it, there really isn't one. Your circle spells you can cast whether you're in the form or not, and you don't get them until the 3rd level, so that doesn't help. The ecstatic dance, which is the new way to calculate your AC, is not as beneficial as it would be for like a monk, seen as this form doesn't seem to be very well suited to diving into combat on its own, and druids already have other ways to improve their armor class, like bark skin, and other things like I think bark skin, or maybe that's just. Oh no, but bark skin is literally very, very similar. So, yeah, so that doesn't really help. And then advantage on wisdom saving throws to resist charm effects is something that any elf or half elf is going to have. And I think there's a couple other races that have that built into them. And elves are really, really common to be druid. Wood elves get a bonus to their wisdom score. So it's extremely common to have wood elf and druids. So that aspect just isn't useful. And as far as like maybe it's a role playing kind of thing, it doesn't really give you a reason you would want to turn into this circle form. It makes you look a little bit more naturey. And Jeremy actually made a video to talking about his classes, and he mentioned that this subclass is designed to be kind of that hedonistic, wild ass suspect of some myths and legends, but nothing in this circle form really kind of emphasizes that, especially when you get it at the 2nd level. You're a lot better off using your wild shape to turn into beasts, even though you're limited to challenge rating 1/4 or lower. There's still a lot of 1/4 or lower beasts that are useful. So yeah, for the 3rd level you get your circle spells. They're all kind of based on like mind manipulation, stuff like that. Again, the whole class is based on this idea of the music manipulating you, and And if you look into mythological creatures like satyrs and nymphs and the things like that, where they were in the thrall people, you could even kind of put sirens into this. This is the same thing, where they would enthrall mortals with music and the dance and sexuality and the things like that. That's kind of what this is emulating. And so I think the circle spells fit it pretty well. But they don't really do anything with this circle form, which is a defining part of this this subclass. So, and yeah, again, if you're in circle form, you can cast your circle spells, but you can cast your circle spells when you're not in it as well. Because like any other circle spells for any other subclasses, you always have it prepared. It doesn't count against the number of spells you can prepare each day, and any spells that are not on the Druid spell list count as Druid spells if they're your circle spell. So again, the class seems to be fighting against itself here, where it's saying, hey, one of the benefits of using the circle form is you get to cast your circle spells, but you can cast your circle spells anytime. You always have them prepared. They don't count against your prepared spell number. So it almost says, hey, this is why you would want to use the circle form, but I can do it without the circle form. So why are you emphasizing that aspect of the circle form if it's not special, if it's not a reason to use circle form? The thing you get at 6th level, I think, is super cool. It's called Incite Frenzy. And effectively, you get to mess with people's minds and make them basically go manic for a little while. There are 1, 2, 3. There are 4 different ways you can evoke it. You can only invoke it once per short or long rest. And each one does something a little bit different. The first one, allies within 10 feet basically get a strength boost, where they get advantage on strength athletics checks, and they do additional damage with their melee weapon damage rolls. If you want to know the specific number that they add to their damage rolls, pick up the class because it's really awesome. And even though I'm very critical of this one, I still think overall the thing is amazing. Which is really cool. The strength athletics thing can be extremely useful in certain situations. If you have to climb up a tree or something like that, or the party is climbing a mountain or something like that, the ability to have advantage on your strength athletics checks is a big deal, especially for people that have lowballed their strength score. So that's cool. And then extra damage to melee weapons rolls, always useful. That can be a turning point in a battle. So that's a specific thing, has both in combat and out of combat aspects that are really useful. The second one is they get super fast. They can use their reaction to move up to their speed without provoking opportunity attacks. We've already talked about this. That is always useful. First of all, it gives you a use for your reaction, which is good. And second of all, no opportunity attacks, and you can move anywhere you want. It's an incredibly great control type ability. Next one I think is probably the most interesting and possibly the most problematic at the same time. Not that it's a bad ability or anything like that. It can cause as many issues in battle as it can solve, and I think that's one of the reasons I like it. Enemies within 10 feet of you are overcome by rage, they must make they got to make a wisdom save, or immediately use their reaction to move half their speed to a randomly determined creature they can reach and make a single melee weapon attack against the creature. Wow, can this go really bad or really good? Again, first things first, it's making them use their reaction. When we talk about action economy, whichever side has more actions has the advantage in 5th edition. So taking away actions from your enemy gives you the advantage. And this is taking away their reaction. Which I see in the games that I've run and played in. Generally, enemies make opportunity attacks a lot more than players do. Just because players tend to be a little bit more tactical, whereas enemies a lot of the time just kind of run up, attack, and then go to the next one. So taking away their reaction so that they can't use opportunity attacks, or if you're fighting spellcasters and they keep countering your party, this is a great way to get rid of their ability to counterspell, because that takes their reaction. Now, because it's a randomly determined creature, there is just as good a chance that they will attack one of their own allies as they will attack the druid or anyone else of your allies. And I think that's what I love about this is so much, because this is a risk reward kind of ability. I think it's super interesting, super cool, and it gives you a choice. I've said this many times. Good class design should give you a choice where there isn't a definitive right or wrong answer. There are pluses and minuses to each outcome. This is the epitome of that. So I really like that. And then the last one is enemies within 10 feet get super confused. Basically, if they're concentrating on a spell, they've got to make a wisdom save, or they stop concentrating on the spell. I've mentioned before, concentration is the limiting aspect of magic in 5th edition. Concentration ensures that certain spell effects can't overlap, making them super overpowered, and it limits some of the more powerful spells. So the ability to wipe out concentration, or make them make a concentration check, not against the standard, like you have to roll above a 10, but actually to have to beat your spell save DC. Is a lot better. The only issue I have with it is it's very rare in the game where you're going to have multiple spellcasters all using concentration spells at the same time. Because they have to be so close to you, and it's very likely you're only going to be able to remove concentration on one. I think that's probably the weakest of the 4 abilities there. Still really useful, but with the fact that you only get one of these per short or long rest, that'd probably be the one that I'd use the least. So overall, I really like Incite Frenzy. I think it fits with the theme really well. I kind of would like to see it more, have more uses than just a single one and then you have to rest. Like maybe to tie it to your wisdom modifier, because as you'll see in the rest of this, every ability of this class, every feature of this is a subclass, is a one and done kind of thing, which makes it really limiting as far as how it changes the druid itself. You're really going to be playing a druid that sometimes can do some hedonistic things, as opposed to like a I can't a moon druid where they're constantly transforming into their battle forms, or a land druid where they have all these cool new spells they can use. Yeah, you could kind of get new spells with this, but the really defining features of the class are one and done, and then this is a circle form that doesn't really have a purpose, even it's just a 6th level now. So going on to 10th level, you now get something that your circle form can do. It's called Twisted Pleasures. And this is another one that I think is really, really interesting. And I'm actually a really, really big fan of, because it's a very control-y type thing. I do need to mention the second paragraph under Twisted Pleasures is identical to the first half of the third paragraph. So it looks like you guys just double pasted half a paragraph in here. So when you do revise this, you'll want to take that out. However, the basics of it is when you're in circle form, you can use your action to make people dance. And the dancing does a lot more than just get them just glorious. This is Stefan. The rhythm is gonna get ya. The rhythm is gonna get ya. Yeah. But basically, you can choose humanoid or beast creatures within 60 feet, up to a number that, if you want to know that's a specific number, you can pick up the class, because it's super worth it. And they make a wisdom save, and if they fail, they are charmed by you. So creatures that are immune to charm are also immune to this ability. While they're charmed, and I'm going to read this verbatim because I think the description is beautiful. While charmed in this way, the target begins to comically dance in place, letting loose its inhibitions. I love this idea that you turn into a circle form, you turn on your boombox, and the rhythm is gonna get ya, the rhythm is gonna get ya, ba-do-do-do-da-do-ba, ba-da. And everyone's like, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. Wow, I should not have done that. I'm super dizzy. But I love that idea. I love the idea that people just let go, and like a mini Burning Man happens right there. While they're dancing, they use their entire movement to dance. So they're rooted in place. They have disadvantage on attack rolls and dex saves. And while the target's dancing, other creatures have advantage on attack rolls against it. This mechanically is really, really good. First of all, you're sticking them in place, which is really, really useful, especially for melee units. It's a pretty large area. So you can kind of pick and choose the targets that you just don't want moving. And even with spellcasters and stuff like that, if you get them stuck in one place and then make all of their attack rolls have disadvantage, it can be really, really useful. To get out of it, a creature that's dancing can use their action. So again, talking about action economy, they have to use their action to make another wisdom save. If they save, it's over. If they fail for 3 times, it just lasts for an hour, and they get a level of exhaustion. which is a lot more damaging to players than it is to enemies. Because a level of a single level of exhaustion makes ability checks have the disadvantage. Most enemies are not going to be making ability checks, so unless you're going to be dealing like fighting multiple fights against the exact same guys, and they just retreat and reform in a couple hours. One level of exhaustion is not really going to change a ton. Two levels changes things, and attack rolls and saving throws and all of that become disadvantage. So I'd almost say just add us a second level of exhaustion. Because otherwise, especially since they have to fail the 3 saves and it takes an hour for them to deal with it, they're going to be dead in an hour anyway. You could give them 5 levels of exhaustion, wouldn't change much. And then there's other ways to improve a creature's chance of resisting the effect. If you want to know those specifics, pick up the supplement, because it's definitely worth it. And then if a creature does succeed, they basically get to use their reaction to move up half their speed without provoking opportunity attacks, and become immune to the effect until it completes a long rest. Which is another thing that doesn't really matter, because you need to do a shorter long rest before you can use this again. So this is another one and done kind of thing. So yeah, it's remarkably complicated for an ability, because again, you have to keep track of how many times each creature has failed it, and whether or not other factors have contributed to whether they're going to have an easier time waking up from it or not. You have to track the exhaustion level. If they survive in it for an hour, they become immune to it if they save, and it's a remarkably complicated feat. I like the idea behind it, but again, you've got 2 uses of your wild shape, which you get back on a shorter long rest. So if you're using your circle form for both of your wild shapes, which since it's a defining feature of this is a subclass, you probably should. Only half the time you're using your circle form will you actually get to do something that is exclusive to your circle form. So again, the motivation of, well, why do I want to use my circle form is really limited. And as much as I think this is a really cool ability, tying it and making it an exclusive motivation to use the circle form really to me doesn't really justify it. You're gonna have to waste your bonus action doing your wild shape, or it might be I actually have to look really quick. Oh no, you wild shaping, if you're not a moon druid, wild shaping is your action. So you have to use your action to turn into your circle form. Wait a turn. Use your action to do twisted pleasures, and then you have to track all these additional aspects. It turns playing this form of a druid into a very complicated situation where you have to keep track of your forms, keep track of how many saves each one gets, and either it's going to be the player keeping track of it, or as happens very often, it's going to be the DM keeping track of it, which is even more confusing. So, interesting idea. I love the thought behind it, but it's really complicated, and it's tied to this form that doesn't seem to have another purpose other than to use this 10th level ability once. per short or long rest. And that means from level to 2 all the way up to level to 10, there's literally no reason to use your circle form other than to get some temporary hit points. The 14th level of ability is Knight of Revels, which is another really interesting ability. It's an ability you actually use during a long rest. Everyone's basically got to be within 60 feet of you, which is not difficult when you're sleeping. And you basically could create a laser light show. And it gives a bunch of benefits. They basically get a free lesser restoration spell cast on them, which is okay. For a 14th level ability, I might even argue that a greater restoration might be more in line, especially when you see the limitations of this. In addition to the lesser restoration, they get temporary hit points. If you want to know the specific amount, pick up the guide because it's definitely worth it. They get advantage on concentration, Constitution saving throws to maintain concentration on a spell, which is super useful, and advantage on wisdom saves, and these benefits last for 24 hours. So overall, this is just a whole lot of yep. Temp hit points, always good. Advantage on concentration checks, super useful. Again, concentration's a big thing. Advantage on wisdom saves, super useful. All the abilities that let bad guys control your mind or do other things like paralyze you, those are wisdom saves. So super useful. And it lasts for a full 24 hours. So effectively, this means for an entire venturing day, you don't have to worry about a lot of bad stuff. Now, once you use the feature, you can't use it again for 7 days. So you have to wait a week to use this again, which is one of the reasons why I mentioned that I would argue that greater restoration instead of lesser restoration would be a better fit for this. Simply because lesser restoration only cures things like poison and a couple other conditions, where greater restoration can get rid of levels of exhaustion and other things like that. And you can only use it once per 7 days. So I see it's a good ability. It could be better with how limited it is. And that's the circle of Revelry. Like I said, I watched Jeremy's video on this. I get where he was coming from. I think execution-wise, this hasn't done what he wanted it to do, which I feel really bad, because he mentions in the video that he's particularly proud of this one, and I don't think it does what he from what he describes it doing. I don't see you having the ability to do that. The vast majority of the kind of defining features of this are limited to once per long rest or once per short rest. Or I think almost everything is per short rest. And there are adventuring days where you don't get any short rests. Depending on what you're doing and just how hectic it is. Or you may have 3 or 4 combats before you can get a short rest. So that limits what they can do. A lot of the abilities in here are really interesting, but because of how limited they are, there's very few. There's going to be very few chances for a Revelry Druid to feel like a Revelry Druid other than casting their circle spells, which again, really cool. But it's you're going to have to flavor a lot of the circle spells in order to make them feel like they're Revelry. And then the circle form. There's no real benefit in either the lore and role playing behind it, or the actual mechanics of it to use your circle form, especially when you get to higher levels where you can do challenge rating 1 creatures. I know challenge rating 1 seems really simple, but there's such a vast variety of things that challenge rating 1 monsters can do, beasts specifically, that the ability to fly or the ability to breathe underwater vastly outshines a few temporary hit points and an alternate way to factor your AC. If you were to redesign this, Jeremy, if you're watching this, again, I love your class. I love this subclass. I just don't think it does what you want it to do. And I think a lot of it could be fixed by just adding something to the circle form. Like maybe the Incite Frenzy abilities, you could add a lesser form of one or two of them as just an ability built into the circle form, so that when they get to level 6, Incite Frenzy is simply an upgrade to those abilities instead of brand new abilities. And you could still limit Incite Frenzy. Again, I would probably say link it to like your a number of times equal to your wisdom modifier or something, and then it recharges on a long rest. Just because Incite Frenzy really fits in well with what your vision of the class is. And by giving... because most of these abilities only last for a turn, so they're not massively overpowered if you're able to do them more than once per combat. And it really defines this as a subclass. You know, that idea of the kind of hedonistic, like, I'm just gonna say, this is Burning Man, the subclass. And I'm not just saying that in any sort of derogatory way. I have a lot of friends that love Burning Man and what it stands for. But that's kind of the feeling I get from this. You know, this creature that you know, this person that enjoys and admires the idea of self-expression to such a degree that they're willing to kind of cast off societal norms in order to express themselves through song, through dance, and through other ways. Like, that's what I see this, and Incite Frenzy is a perfect example of that. But again, when we go back to the Druid and the defining features, it's a spellcaster, and you did kind of help this spellcasting by giving them some circle spells, but you could do that just as easily by giving a new terrain to the land druid, because each terrain gets their own spell list. So to me, that doesn't do enough to justify an entire new class. And then the wild shape is the other defining feature of the druid, and the wild shape form of this just doesn't do anything but give temporary hit points. And change your appearance a little bit. So that's what I would say. I really think Incite Frenzy is the right kind of idea. And I like the idea that the thing that defines this druid is a different wild shape of a form that it can take. But you've got to do something to make that wild shape form worth you using. You know, give it some sort of benefit, even if it's entirely role playing related, where you get bonuses to you effectively get expertise in performance or persuasion. Or maybe you get the effect of the friend spell whenever you're in circle form, without them getting pissed off when it ends, or allowing the friends cantrip to last the entire time the circle form will last, or just something that gives you an incentive to use this circle form. And then yeah, I would definitely really focus on that Incite Frenzy, because it's such a great idea, and it fits so well with what you described as your goal for this class, and it's just so limited that someone playing a Revelry Druid is almost never is going to use it so rarely that they're not going to feel so special. They're not like, if you have a Revelry Druid and a Moon Druid, the Revelry Druid is just going to kind of feel handicapped, because the Moon Druid can do so many other things that they can't, and the things that they can do that the Moon Druid can't, they can only do once. So yeah, that's where I'm going to stop, because this is pretty long. Sorry this is so long, but like I said, I really wanted to talk and get really in depth with the Druid, because I think it's a great concept. It just, I don't think it was executed as well as it could be. That being said, I do like the fact that one of my favorite basically my favorite as of right now, my favorite subclass, and the one that I had the most issues with and the most criticism for, were in this same video. The rest of this stuff in this guide is still amazing. So please, like I said before, in the description below, there's going to be a little link. Click on the link, but purchase it. It's only about $8 last time I checked, so it's just super affordable, and it's definitely worth it. As always, but please hit the like button on this video if you enjoyed it. In the comments below, because this is a DM's Guild DM's Guild thing, and they can revise it, unlike a hardcover book where they have to just publish a errata and hope people use it. Do you have any observations about the Journey Cleric or the Revelry Druid? Put those in the comments below. Please remember, any comments or criticism should be constructive. They should be based on the idea that you want to help them make this better. They should not simply be, tearing it apart or saying all this stuff you don't like, or something like that. Because all that does is frustrate the person that wrote it, and can actually make them ignore any good advice you do. So if I see any comments that are just attacking stuff, they will just magically disappear. Otherwise, that's all for me today, and I will see you guys next time, all right? Bye-bye!